Welcome to this explainer. Today we're turning the badminton court into a geometry and neuroscience lab. We're going to figure out exactly how certain players seem to literally read minds, and more importantly, how you can use that exact same science to become completely unreadable yourself. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so you know this frustrating scenario, right? I mean, we've all been there. You hit your absolute best cross-court drop. It's deceptive, it's super sharp, but the second the shuttle crosses the tape, you look up, and your opponent is already standing right there just waiting for it. So next rally, you decide to switch it up and go straight instead, and somehow, no way, they're waiting for that one too. It feels incredibly unfair, almost like they're somehow tapping directly into your brain.
But here's the reality. They aren't actually faster than you, and they certainly aren't telepathic. You're just accidentally telegraphing your moves by falling into a mathematical trap. Basically, your opponent is just capitalizing on human predictability, geometry, and probability. And today, we're going to break down exactly how they pull it off.
All right, let's start with Section 1, Geometry, debunking the center T.
Let's actually start by blowing up the biggest geographical lie you've probably ever been taught in badminton, that you must always recover to the central T. Here's why that's just mathematically wrong. In data science, there's this concept called the centroid of probability. Think of it like this. When you push your opponent deep into their backhand corner, their maximum cross-court angle is heavily limited by pure physics and human anatomy. This creates this sort of geometric cone of possible return paths. Because they're trapped deep in that corner, the actual center of their return options shifts entirely away from the physical middle of the court.
And this comparison perfectly shows why blindly running back to the painted physical tee is basically leaving a massive exploitable gap that an advanced player is going to punish every single time. If you just return to that center line, you're literally stepping outside of the math. Advanced players don't guess where you're going, they simply calculate the geometry of that cone and stand right in the middle of it. They let the math do the footwork for them.
Moving on to Section 2, Game Theory, the illusion of randomness.
But hey, court positioning is only half the battle. We also have to look at the math of human decision-making. And here's a wild psychological fact for you. Human beings are incredibly bad at being truly random. Like, terrible at it. Even when you consciously try to be unpredictable, psychology and game theory prove that your brain instinctually defaults to highly predictable safety patterns when you're under stress. When you try to just, mix it up, your brain actually ends up creating these alternating patterns that are incredibly easy for a smart opponent to spot. Just look at the hard data for this scenario. When pushed deep and late into a backhand corner, intermediate club players hit a cross-court drop 70% of the time. Why? Simply because it feels safe. They hit a straight clear about 20% of the time, and a desperation smash maybe 10% of the time. Your opponent has played dozens of players exactly like you, and their brain has been compiling this exact data over years of matches. Because you unknowingly stick to these mathematical percentages, your opponent doesn't actually need to guess. They just gamble on the highest probability. If they know you're going cross-court 70% of the time from that backhand corner, they're going to start cheating their weight in that direction early. In game theory, this is effectively finding your Nash equilibrium. They've identified your optimal safety pattern, and now they're countering it flawlessly every single time.
Which brings us to Section 3, the neuroscience, the Bayesian badminton brain.
So how in the world are they processing this massive amount of data in real time right in the middle of a lightning-fast rally? Well, the answer lies in neuroscience. Your opponent is essentially running an AI model inside their head known as a Bayesian brain. Every single time you hit a shot, your opponent's brain is silently and instantly updating the probabilities of what you'll do next based entirely on pure visual data.
Think about how this builds in a real rally. When you prepare for what you think is a super deceptive drop shot, your body inevitably gives away a tiny visual glitch. Maybe you decelerate your arm swing just a fraction of a second too early. Your opponent's Bayesian brain catches that tiny glitch, runs a lightning-fast calculation, and updates the probability of a drop shot to near 100%. This sends a signal straight to their legs, getting them moving 300 milliseconds before you even strike the shuttle.
It's like your biomechanics are constantly leaking data all over the court. Locking out a straight arm too early at the net, that screams that you're playing a weak net drop. Finishing your body rotation too fast instantly rules out a powerful smash, which tells your opponent they can safely step forward. Basically, you're breaking the illusion before the shuttle even leaves your strings.
And that brings us to this amazing point. The best players don't hide their shots, they hide information. If you want to win the mental game of badminton, you have to stop feeding your opponent's internal prediction machine. The best players in the world don't just focus on hiding their shots. They focus entirely on hiding the raw information. They keep their preparation absolutely identical until the very last possible millisecond.
All right, Section 4, the solution, weighted unpredictability. So how do we actually fix this? How do we take back control of the court? The answer is a really cool concept called weighted unpredictability. Instead of panicking under pressure and trying to just act random, which, as we know, humans are terrible at, you intentionally mix your shots based on their actual mathematical value against a specific opponent. You don't just guess blindly, you weigh the odds.
Let's say you realize your cross-court drop actually wins you way more points against a particular player because, say, they have slower lateral movement. The mathematically sound mix isn't just going 50-50. Instead, you purposefully aim for a structurally sound mix, something like a 70-30 ratio. You play the cross-court 70% of the time to maintain your clear advantage, but you inject that straight shot 30% of the time just to keep them completely honest. This makes you fundamentally impossible to predict.
But here's the catch. You can't just calculate this mid-rally. You absolutely have to train it. By using a deck of cards or a randomizer app to dictate your shots during shadow practice, you force your body to execute the perfect geometric distribution entirely on instinct. Pull 7 red cards, that means cross-court. 3 black cards, straight. Practicing this way completely bypasses your brain's predictable safety bias, hardwiring true, mathematically sound unpredictability right into your muscle memory.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about your own game and ask yourself this final question. What is the one shot your opponent always seems to expect from you? Because honestly, recognizing your own mathematical patterns and understanding the exact data you're leaking is the very first step to becoming unreadable. Thanks for joining me on the court today, and hey, keep playing the math.